Today, when fish get nervous, and every pot has one, yeah, we're going to talk about nets and lids next on Live Free and Ham. Hello, and welcome to Live Free and Ham podcast. This is our bi-weekly show where we discuss ham radio topics in New Hampshire, New England, and beyond. So whether you're a regular listener or first-time guest, we're excited to have you here, and we appreciate your support. And thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. So let's get into today's show. I'm your host, Eric, callsign N1JUR, and I'm with my co-hosts,
Paul, N1OG.
Todd, W1STJ.
All right, cool. Well, before we kind of get into our usual flow here, we got a few things to always like to catch up on. As always, we've got our storefront, livefreeandham.com/shop. You can always head over there and check out all the merch. And as a little perk there, if you are a oh man, I just forgot what we are. Right? My gosh, this is pretty bad. One of those weeks, man. You come off of holiday week and your brain just goes to mush. Yeah, if you're
looking for cool gear,
or if you're a Patreon member, we have a bunch of discounts as a way to show our Patreon members how much we love you. So if you want to be able to get some discounts on some of our swag, you can always become a Patreon member and support the show, and you'll get up to, in some cases, 40% off on some of our stuff there. So you can always do that. And as always, we always want to thank everybody who's purchased from the store. And we are definitely keep adding new things to it. And if you've got an idea that you want to share with us, that you want to become part of our merch there, we would love to hear it. So you can always send it over to us and share it. And if we do produce the shirt, we'll make sure we get you one of your own. And so with that, the other last thing is that we know that Apple Podcasts, if you are an Apple Podcast listener, you can always head over there and leave us a review. And we always love to hear our reviews, but we haven't gotten any in a while. But we offer a new option. If you head down a link in our description of all of our show notes, there's an SMS link where you can text us how much you love the show and tell us there straight. And we'll love to hear from you. So make sure you head on over there, click that link, and give us a review, and we'll make sure we share it on our next show. And so with that, we will obviously be coming up with our monthly live stream. So keep an eye out for that. There'll be more details on that. And so with that, we are going to just dive into a special segment.
You do. That's good.
You good? You good?
You're doing good.
Absolutely, I do. Good.
Doing good, Bob. Doing real good.
Right now, my only outlet is my ham radio.
We have got a new segment we're starting as we call Let's Try Do Good. Well, we all felt that, as you start to join clubs or you start to hear about getting into the hobby, that, you want to find a club that you can connect with. Well, we've heard everybody's story about, how bad clubs can be. But what we want to shed some light on, we want, to be able to give you and your club the spotlight to be able to share some of the great things you're doing. So we've created this segment called Doing Good. But the biggest problem, and Paul, you can tell me how you feel with this one, or even Todd, what the heck? No one's sending anything in. Is it all clubs suck?
I'm telling you, nobody's doing good things. Everybody's just being a bad apple.
That's apparently what it's going to be turning into. So, with that, we want to stress this. If you've got something going on in your club, no matter how big, small, or in between, send us an email at livefreeandham@gmail.com, and we'll share it with folks just to promote you guys, to show that, clubs are doing some great stuff there. So even if you're not a traditional club and you're a bunch of guys that get together, for field days or whatever, and you do something great there, please share it with us, and we'll make sure we get it on our next episode. So with that, we're going to put a pin in the little something extra there, because Todd has been busy in his summertime, and the new question pool is out, and he hasn't had a chance to get his head wrapped around that yet. So we're going to put a pause on this for the next probably couple of weeks. And with that, we'll be probably picking that up sometime in September again. So Todd will have some time to refresh his understanding and get knee deep into that question pool there. And so with that, we'll be holding over. So we're sad to say you won't hear much from our VE Quizmaster, but not to say that you won't hear from the rest of the show either. But anyway,
Extra by 2025.
Yes, exactly right. We'll be in way ahead of the curve on that one. we might actually be able to get a debate, and we'll put you on the campaign trail. All right. So in our usual format, let me ask, hey, Paul, how's your ham radio week been?
Oh, wow. Well, let's see. I lost my cool with Ham Shock Hotline yesterday. Signed up for Hams Over IP. The boat pictured behind me is the new HF mobile rig. So that is all set up for HF on the water. But otherwise, I made a couple quick contacts with a couple 13 colony stations. It didn't get to spend anywhere near as much time as I would have liked, but hey, that's the way it is. Life gets busy, and it's a hobby, so you gotta just fit it in where you can.
That's true. So HF mobile on the boat, what'd you put for the rig?
This side of the radio, 7300.
Oh, okay. And now it's permanently mounted, or this is you take on and off with you?
No. It's in a Pelican case, and so it'll just on and off. Yep.
Oh, cool. Okay. Now, what are you running for antenna on the boat?
Oh, you would be amazed to learn that I'm running the Reliance and Fit half wave.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you just running the radio in the water, or you're running, how did you tell? How are you getting that thing set up?
Yeah.
All right. So the marine radio mast, the antenna mast is, it's like 14, 15 feet long. Mm-hmm. So I zip tied one of those little plastic S clips onto the top. And I just run the wire through in an inverted V from the bow to the stern of the boat.
Okay.
And whatever's left can hang out in the water.
Wow. Okay. So what are you getting for SWR and
well, so I'm not in the water yet. So
okay.
I haven't gotten a fully test as to how the salt water affects it, but at least initial setup on the boat, everything works great. SWR is perfect. So it should be phenomenal once I get out in the water.
Okay. Well, then we expect some video out of that one, because I definitely want to see that in action.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Well, with that, Todd, how is your ham radio week? Even though I'm sure you probably hammered more nails and swung heavy equipment than you've radio microphones.
Well, I'm putting a deck in, or replacing my deck, because I got tired of falling through it because it was rotting away. Good thing is the joists were fine, so I'm just putting up some Trex, and just taking a long time because I'm trying to fit everything in the way it was. But the Trex is thicker than what the boards were, so nothing goes easy. But we got most of it done, and should be smooth sailing tomorrow. Should be able to get 3/4 of it, or pretty much all of it done, and then we just got to do the finishing stuff. So
mission failed. We'll get them next time.
I was on vacation. I drove down to North Carolina. Love North Carolina. It was really a lot of fun. And I had two kids and a wife, and I had to sneak in some POTAs. So first stop was just south of Richmond, and I got up at like 6 a.m, snuck out of the hotel, activated a park, got Virginia, then went down to North Carolina and found out that there was a wildlife refuge 7 minutes away.
Ooh.
So I went every morning. I got up at 6, 7 o'clock, got down there. Didn't even realize there's early shift awards, because all of a sudden I got this alert saying you got an early shift for activate. I go, hey. Bands were tough. A lot of static, a lot of up and downs. The last day I was there was the best day. Bands were coming around, so that was good. So then we headed up home, stopped in Maryland to see my uncle. Stayed overnight, and in the morning before we left, I got up again, snuck out of the house, and went to a park. And I actually worked our Ryan W1S&H, our other host, and he was
Was
up
that
in
when he was in
Maine.
Maine? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he
All right.
was in Maine. So I worked him in North Carolina too. And what was awesome is he's got this big tower and this beam, and he turned the beam right at me. And all of a sudden it was like, boom, I got a 5.9, no static. It was perfect. I was like, sweet. I'm thinking the band, he goes, I got the beam right at you. But anyway, he was on QRP. He was on 10 watts, I think he said. He was up at
Yeah.
was he in the ocean or a lake or something?
No, he was at a lake based off the pictures.
Yeah. And so I got to work him. I worked Bill W1WRA. I worked. Did I work you, Eric? I think I worked you, right?
No,
worked-
you worked me. Well, one time you did. I think it was like
Yeah.
17 or 15 or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked Bill when I did the 3 bands. I did 10, 15, or 10, 17, and 20. I got Bill on all 3 of them. I got Frank. What's his KC1 TLY?
Oh yeah, Ralph. Yep.
Oh, Ralph. Yeah. I got Ralph. And
on 1 watt, I'm sure.
I don't know what he was on. But
for those that don't know, Ralph,
he goes, I got you on 10 meters. I'm like, I didn't do 10 meters. And I remembered I did do 10 meters. I'm like, oh yeah, I did. But yeah, so it was cool. I had a good time. So I picked up Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland for new states. I'm up to 15. So
Wow.
10 more and I'm halfway there. Would have stopped in New Jersey and Delaware, but family wasn't too, they just wanted to get down there. But if it was me and you, Erica, we would have stopped for sure.
Oh yeah, every park on the way,
and then I would have detoured. I would have detoured into Pennsylvania just to pick them up too. But no, it was a lot of fun, and it was good because I was able to set up really good. But the bands were so bad, and then I was going to set up at night, but every night, man, the winds picked up, and my antenna wouldn't allow. I'd have to like duct tape it, I'd have to like zip tie it to the deck. It was so windy. So we had like a storm that came up. I'm not joking. It was like 60-mile-an-hour winds. There was a thunderstorm that was coming, and before the storm, it started blowing. Like the sand was belting me. It felt like I was getting shot 100 times. Beach balls, 30 of them. Beach balls, volleyballs, hauling ass down the beach. And we're gathering everything up. People's hats are flying off. Next thing you know, they're like a quarter mile. I mean, it was crazy. I couldn't hold the beach chair in one hand without it like taking off on me. Like seriously, if I had a kite, I would have been flying. So I have the beach chair and I'm holding it, and I had to push it against the wind, and as hard as I could, or it'd come back and hit me in the head. So we finally got everything out, and I went up, and I have a little weather machine, wind meter or whatever. And by the time I got out and upstairs, it was like 35 miles an hour, but it had calmed down. So I'm guessing it was probably around 60 miles an hour. It was crazy. The whole beach, like within 5 minutes, like emptied. Everyone's tent beach thing gone, flying through in the ocean. I mean, it was nuts. I was like, this is only like 60 miles an hour. I can't imagine what like 180 or like a hurricane coming on.
When was it? Was that during like the field day weekend? Like when that happened, or later in the week?
No, it was. Let's see. It was. We got there. Saturday. So I did work field day. I worked Virginia on field day on Sunday morning.
Okay.
So it was like Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, because I was asking because I know we had tornado warnings. We literally rolled out of camp like lightning. We were.
Yeah, it was. I was watching that. It was after that. It was basically a storm was coming in off the ocean. The second one we had the next day was coming from the land, but this one was coming off the ocean, coming inward, and it just picked up. It was crazy, but yeah. So I got a lot of POTA, and I was pretty psyched. I did. And then we'll talk about a little bit today about my one experience, and I didn't film it, and I tried to.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about that one.
but it was a lot of fun, and like I said, I just wish the bands were a little bit better because it was tough. I mean, it was like I felt bad because some of these guys I'd hear them, and then they just vanish, and I'd hear half their call sign, and I couldn't get the second half, and then one guy stuck with me, and he came back like maybe a half an hour later, and I think he was trying the whole time. And I'm like, I hear you, I got you. But
we had a G4 during that time period.
Yeah, we did. That was very much a storm.
Yeah, we had a G4 solar storm.
So is that why the bands were so crappy?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
See,
look
you had 62 contacts. I mean, dude, you were phenomenal for.
well, no, they came back that day because I was like, oh, okay. Well, the one I did in Maryland, right? So I'm in Maryland. This is when I'm talking to Ryan, and I could barely hear him. And he's texting me. He goes, dude, I can hear you. I can't hear you. And then he goes, where are you located? And I found this perfect spot next to this like little river, this little stream. It was beautiful. I'm like, oh, no one's here. Nice little spot. I'm all set. And then I look after I tried it. I got a couple contacts, but it was kind of sporadic, and I wasn't hearing a lot. I'm like literally in the valley of two huge mountains, like hills, like literally like steep hills to the right, across the river, steep hill. I'm like, oh, so
Yep.
a family came and took over, where I was at. They were jumping in the river. So I just packed up, threw everything in the truck and drove up to the top. There's it's called like King and Queen's Perch or something. And I get up there, and all of a sudden, like Ryan comes in, no problem, and all of a sudden the contacts just start flowing. So
Damn hills.
that's what it was. But I wasn't, me. I mean, I should know better, right? But I was just like, it was early in the morning. It was like 7:00 in the morning. And I find this perfect spot next to a river. I'm like, how perfect is this? I'm in this park, and then I didn't even notice to look that. Oh, I'm in the middle of two mountains or two hills. I'm not getting anywhere.
Totally.
So,
Well. Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I can't say, my ham radio week. I mean, we're recording this. I mean, we've got a couple of weeks in between and stuff. So, yeah, it's been pretty packed. I mean, with field day and all of the field day activities. So, Paul and I had a blast, even though kind of the bands were rough. They were. I mean, we spent a good
They were all
amount.
right.
Yeah. I mean, we 10 meters, I could literally sit there and press the record button with my voice going over and over and over again. And after the 15th time, then I would get a call, and then it would go dead, and we'd do the same cycle over and over again. So it's like we could have gone through a whole 30 pack, I think, by the time, we had made 15 contacts on 10 meters. But, it was fun. I mean, up until I think, with field day, we ran into the big storm that hit, that Saturday. And I mean, literally everybody was like pouring buckets of, water off the tents. And, it was the typical, rain on field day, which, we all didn't like, which is going to inspire me next year. Paul, I'm dropping my trailer off at your house, and you and I are going to build the interior up for a table and everything else like that. So we literally will have an enclosure for next year. And so, we'll do all that construction at your house, get it all set up for the radios and everything else like that. And then you can drive it there. And that way you can just drop it off. And now we've got you can attach your screen shelter after, and that'd be our hangout spot. But that trailer, we'll go it all out, and we'll put air conditioning in it. That's my thought. So,
it'll be sunny and 75 degrees.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what it needs. That's what we need to bring it back. That I'm all for it. So. Yeah, I've been drying out my hex beam again and getting all that reorganized and put back away, and it's definitely starting to show signs of wear. So I got to replace a few parts on that, which is that comes with the the use of it. And then I just we before we recorded the show, I was up in Maine, and we were kind of scouting out for our vacation coming up soon, and there was a guy up in Mount Washington, doing soda, and my radio on 5.2 was going nuts. And I've never heard anything anytime I've ever been up in Maine on 5.2. And this guy was, people were coming out of the woodwork to work him. And, I had him out of pretty much Wells area, good strong 5.9. And he's like, I'm up on Mount Washington, and it's like, 47 degrees, but I'm having a blast. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Degrees today.
It is. You think so? Here's the funny part: is like on my anniversary, I went up there with my wife, and I took my HT, and I was like, I got to check the weather to see, because at that point it was like 93 at the base, and by the time we took the Cog Railway up there and got up to the top, it was 38 with the winds. It was 25 miles an hour. It was freezing. I mean, I was like, winter coat. I can't believe there were like kids running around in shorts and t-shirts, and I'm like, what's wrong with your children? They're gonna freeze to death. I mean, it's like utterly ridiculous. But yeah, it gets cold up there fast.
Well, when I was in shape and I was in high school, my buddy and I, we ran long distance, and believe it or not, I used to be a good distance runner, but I couldn't even run like a quarter mile now. But anyway,
Everyone just saved my life.
that's another story. We decided that we were mountain biking and we went to Vermont to his school. He went to Castleton State, and then we went up to Plymouth where I was going to go, and then we decided to go to Mount Washington. Well, I didn't know you could drive up the stupid thing, so he goes, "Yeah, let's run up it." So I'm like, "All right." So I'm wearing like shorts, my running shoes. I got a windbreaker. And like a day pack with like whatever. So I got a windbreaker is like basically all I got. So we start going and we're going. All of a sudden it gets steeper. Now we're climbing up these like makeshift ladders like on the thing.
Yep.
And we're at the point where the trees are like, I don't know, 3 feet.
Yeah, you're
tall,
at the tree line. Yep.
Right. They're getting real small. All of a sudden the clouds come in. It starts freaking snowing, sleeting, hailing. I seriously couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. I thought I was going to die. It was like a river coming down. I grabbed onto this like pine tree, this little 3-foot pine tree, just grabbed on and ducked. And like water's going over my head. I'm like, I'm going to die. Before I even get to college, I'm going to be dead. I can't believe this. The freaking thing close over. The sun comes up. I'm literally 100 feet from this cabin, this rest area before you get to the top. I was like soaking wet, thinking
Just
get up there, and I see this truck, and I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, oh, I go, they must have helicoptered this truck up here.
Nope.
Get up to the top. There's like kids, car park. I'm like, we could have driven up this thing. So we got up there, and then we had to go back down. I was like, Jesus, what were we thinking?
Well, so here's the tip. If you're a hiker and you get all the way up, you can actually buy a ticket to the top to take the cog back down. So, it's the cheap out way, but that's another way of, not having to hike it back down. But, then you haven't had the full experience, and then everybody gets to tease you, I guess, as a hiker. But, hey, I'd rather do that.
We didn't have Uber or anything else, so I don't even know. Like we weren't near the cog. So like if we did take the cog back down, I wouldn't have been anywhere near my car.
No, you would have been on the opposite side of the mountain. Sure.
Yeah, right, which would have totally sucked. So
yep,
it was easier going down than it was going up. But
hopefully we won't get to relive those experiences. Although those that are on the audio only, Paul brought his idiot's guide to hiking 4,000 plus foot mountains, so we all could enjoy a page out of that. I'm sure.
Yeah, I was 17 years old. I'm a lot wiser and smarter now. I would never do what I did.
Yeah.
There are 48 mountains in New Hampshire alone that are over 4,000 feet.
Yep. Most of the presidentials.
Yep.
All good mountains, but yeah, definitely weather changing effects can happen on those pretty quickly. Been on those before. Oh, all right. Well, that's another show for another time when we actually are all more fit and ready to actually attempt to make a, soda attempt, which, one day will be on my bucket list, just not this week. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about lids and nets. Todd alluded earlier. He kind of ran into something in his experience just recently and kind of inspired us to kind of talk about that because we've been hearing a few other YouTubers, sharing articles on Reddit and a few others, and Paul's, participated in a few of those conversations about how to deal with, the nets and the lids that, sometimes run those nets and how, they have been known to say bad things about us folks who like POTA and do POTA and how we're just messing up the hobby and so forth and so on. And so, we're going to kind of touch a little bit on that with the hope, that we can share something with you. Again, we would love to make this a rant show about how bad they are, but I don't think we would serve any justice outside of the fact that we would just get it off our chest and probably cause a lot of hate mail. But
hang on, let me go get my pitchfork.
I know, right? Exactly. Let me get my big giant, I don't give a shit shield. So either. So let's kind of, so to start it off, Todd, so share a little bit about what happened in the piece you were talking about or alluding to earlier about how not recording it because it would have been, video gold.
Yeah. I was working the same park in North Carolina, and I had been there for like an hour and a half, and I've been doing POTA. Got my log, everything's going on. All of a sudden, like out of the blue, this guy starts calling CQ for a net. So I just say, hey, this frequency is in use. Well, then I got this guy who clearly didn't like POTA, clearly didn't like me, and clearly didn't like care what I had to say. So I said, listen, I'm on this frequency doing POTA. He goes, well, we have a net for 20 years here. You need to move. And I said, okay, but the protocol is you first, before you start screaming CQ for your net. And it was a net for, I think it was like Wisconsin people that moved to Florida. It was like the Florida, Wisconsin net. It's been going on for 20 years, right? And again, I could care less about moving, but I was more
Some
upset
snowbird started it.
Right, right. So this guy is like screaming and yelling at me. And I said, listen, I go, I don't mind losing. I said, but just so you know, I said, you don't own the frequency. I said, my club does a 10-meter net and we say on or around the frequency that we're on. And I said, I don't care to move, but I just would have liked you just to understand that this isn't your frequency and I've been on it for an hour and a half. So you should have just asked me and then I would have left. But now that you're being a real jerk about it, I go, I'm going to sit and talk to you about it. So then he threatens to, so then I say, fine, I'll leave. So I leave it on the frequency and I'm looking to see where I'm going to set up next, like what frequency. I'm looking at the POTA app. I'm looking at the spot page. All of a sudden, this guy starts trashing me to his buddy there. And he talks, saying like how POTA shouldn't be allowed. And those guys think they run it. And so I'm like, hey, asshole, I'm still here. I'm listening. You're out of line. Get off this frequency. I'm going to report you. I said, go right ahead. I go, I got an hour and a half logs of me on POTA. And you're going to go in there and I'm going to tell them that you didn't even ask if the frequency was in use. And I said, you want to do it? Go for it. I'd love to have a talk with the FCC about your antics and protocol. And I don't care that your net's been on for 20 years. It doesn't make a difference. That's not a protocol. So
that is true.
So I just listened and he finally said, all right, just get off. So, all right. So I'm done. I leave. I go and finish my POTA, whatever. So the next, I tell Eric what happened and he goes, do you have it on film? I said, no, I didn't film it. He goes, you got to film it. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to set this jerk up. So I get right back on the same frequency because it's a daily net and I start calling CQ Parks on the air. And again, I'm there for like an hour and all of a sudden, but this time he calls up and he makes a contact with me. And I get him in the logbook and he says, he goes, listen, he goes, we're about to do a net. We typically use this frequency. Would you mind moving? I said, no, not at all. I go, thank you for, and this wasn't the same guy. I said, thank you for asking. I said, the guy yesterday was a real ass. And I go, it just wasn't appropriate. And I said, most of us guys doing POTA don't mind moving. I said, especially if you have a net. I said, I didn't know you had a net. I just was letting you know that the frequency was in use. But he goes, no, I understand. You were in the right. And don't, thank you for moving. I said, hey, have a great net. And then I left. But I was hoping that the guy would have come back on and start screaming at me again because I was on his quote unquote frequency. So it was the first time for me that someone was just a complete jerk, like just rude, disrespectful, had no etiquette, no nothing. Like he was just a punk. And I could tell he was like an old dude, that grumpy old man. It's like the guys that I hear on 80 meters at like overnight shifts. Like, you want entertainment, go on 80 meters at like 2 a.m. I mean, you'll hear these people like committing felonies because they threaten each other. I was like, I didn't mind. I mean, go for your net. I could care less. But then once he started trashing POTA, then I was like, and I said, listen, POTA's not going away. It's going to stay here. And it's actually saving this hobby. Whether you like it or not, POTA is saving this hobby. So the guy was he was just a jerk. And it was my first experience where I've heard people being kind of rude, disrespectful on ham radio. I've never actually interacted with them because I don't care to get into that, but I had to interact with them this way. And like I said, I wish I had it videoed because it would have gone viral because this guy was so out of line. I mean, it was just crazy.
That would have been video gold for sure. So Paul, have you, before we kind of dissect that a little bit or dissect that a little bit, you had any similar experiences yourself at all?
Well, so I was going to say, Todd, welcome to the club. Right. Like, I mean, it's about fucking time. Welcome to the club.
Yep.
Yeah. No. All the time. Like, it doesn't even have to be POTA. Like, I could be sitting here at home, and I'll find an open frequency and I'll start calling. And you could be sitting there working DX stations for, several hours, and somebody will come on with a hard on about a net and they'll go, well, this is our frequency. Well, no, it's not. You don't own it. And just not to totally get off the rails, but I'll link Jason's 2 videos on the Maritime Mobile Net. I was honored to be featured with my Reddit comments being read. But the thing is, I don't know why people don't understand that if you're not welcoming in this hobby, if you're not polite and courteous in this hobby, you're going to drive good people away.
Yeah, that's actually a good
segment. It's as simple as that.
Yep. That goes, I think, hand in hand across the entire hobby, not so much as even just on the airwaves in general, both with your actions and your words, no matter what it might be, whether it's the, proverbial, oh, well, that's not ham radio, insert whatever, or the, well, you just don't know, what ham radio is because it used to be this, so it still should be this going forward, and therefore, you're just an idiot, and that.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I was more. I mean, I was all right with it, explaining to him, but when he started trashing me and then trashing POTA, and those guys, they're taking over the air. They should never even be allowed on the rail. I mean, I can be calm, but then I can also go after people.
Oh yeah.
And I had to keep myself in check because I was ready to unleash on this guy. But then I kept thinking to myself, he's just some probably angry old guy, and he wants to do his net, and I interrupted it and whatever. But when he threatened me,
being there,
yeah, and then when he threatened to call the FCC, it was like game on, mother effer. I'm like, let's go,
yep,
all right, because I'm gonna win this one because I told him, I said, I got an hour and a half of logs. What do you have? You just come on here, start calling CQ. You don't even ask. I said, I believe that's in one of the test questions on a general exam of
technician.
Is it a technician?
That's technician, dude.
Right. It's like, dude, I know it was somewhere. I'm like, but just be courteous. And the guy was just, I don't know. I just don't. I like everyone on POTA, everyone I've made contact with. Super nice people. Thanks for being out there. Thanks for getting me. Thanks for the contact. Good luck. Whatever. I'm not looking to start fights with people, but this guy was just way out. And it was just because I was on his frequency. And like I said, I will always leave. If there is a net and I'm on the frequency, clearly I didn't know there was a net. And he told me it's been on for 20 years. So I went on NetLogger to see if it was there. And it wasn't even on NetLogger. So how was I supposed to even know there was a net there? And I don't technically check nets before I do POTA.
That's actually interesting. Because I've seen a few videos out there, and and as Paul alluded to, Jason's whole maritime mobile discussion that he had, which was I thought a really good one. In essence, it kind of dovetails into what we're talking about tonight. Is that the idea is you kill, what's the saying is, you kill more with honey than you do with vinegar or whatever it is. So the idea behind go ahead.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, whatever it was, or lids, or whatever. Fish. You fill in the blank. So all that said is that when we're and I try to stress big time being an ambassador to the hobby, no matter how much I get frustrated with someone's just outright landish, this is the way I like to have my Cheerios and coffee every morning while watching the world explode in front of me. So get off my net, attitude just doesn't fly with me. But at the same time, I am not going to, I have to be very much, as they say, poke the bear a lot in order for me to just get off on them and go crazy. Because again, it is a hobby, it's volunteer, it's all fun, and we all should be having fun. And if we're not having fun, then I just really need to not do this hobby, I guess. But the first thing we kind of talked about, I wanted to touch on real quick, is that we should state the FCC is or not FCC, the ARL and all of the in our ham radio licensing structure. The rule is when you're on a band, and we should clarify this first, is that you obviously want to what? The first word's what? Listen, right? You want to listen some more, and then listen some more. We've all said this on several episodes. We've all talked about how it's important when we do a POTA activation or whatever. And, the fact that, you never know, and especially with the propagation that we've had in the past couple of months, like, dude, you could hear a contact come in 5-9 and then it just goes dead on the floor and you'll never hear him again. And you'll be like, where did he go? I was just in the middle of trying to exchange a 5-9 with him because that's who I thought I was going to be picking off. And so with that, it's like, if you're not doing that due diligence, whether you're the guy running the net or that's what you've been doing forever for the past 20 years, or you're like Todd doing POTA for an hour and a half already, activating, you never know, when and what might happen. So just jumping on and just expecting someone to be like, well, I looked at the 17-page net list that, post. I remember seeing there was some list posted somewhere. And the list is like watching like the credits on the back of a movie keep flowing by because it's just net after net after net. You're like, dude, where am I going to find a spot in the frequency list just on 20 meters alone? Because everyone's got a net, blocked off. And, God forbid, it's like, oh, it's 9:33. I can't be on 14.274 because that net might be on. It's like, screw that. Just, listen, then call. And, if no one comes back to you, you don't hear anybody keying up on you or giving you a problem, then you're probably safe, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I mean, I kind of pick a frequency that I want to do and I turn it on and then I get my log and everything ready and I'm just listening. And sometimes you'll hear someone and move down or up a little bit, whatever. The thing is with this guy didn't even check. He comes in blaring 5-9 CQ, blah, blah, blah. And hey, this frequency is in use. And then he just kind of went off. And I've been here for 20. This is our frequency. And that's when I had to educate him. I said, I don't know how long you've been a ham, but I know that you don't own the frequency. Neither do I. Yep. But since I was here first, I'm the one who makes the decision. So I'm going to leave because that's the right thing to do. And I would always leave. Like if someone says, hey, we have a net normally on this thing, I wouldn't be like, well, too bad, I'm staying there. Because that's not, in my opinion, that's not the right thing anyway. The frequencies should be shared. But don't give an attitude and don't threaten me that you're going to, go ahead, call the FCC. What are you going to say? We had a net, he was on my frequency. Like you're going to be laughed at.
Well, the funny thing was I was sitting with Paul on field day on Friday night. We were just having our usual like steak night and drinking and being on the bands. And I alluded to him every time because literally we'd spin the dial and everywhere we'd spin the dial a net was on, or you'd hear somebody go, oh man, this field day is going to be on. And, it's going to be field day wall to wall. I'm not going to be able to run the net today. And, after like 55,000 years, I'm not going to be able to have the net as we usually schedule every day of, field day because field day is going to be, 3 kilohertz below us and 3 kilos. And I'm like, hey, I turned to Paul and I said, we should just, call CQ field day on 14300, just for the fun of it, just to see what would happen. And of course, lo and behold, I think I spun the dial just to check on, when field day started, like shortly after 2:00, because usually the maritime mobile net is from like 12 to 24 hours from that, or 12 to 1, or some ridiculous time in Eastern Standard Time bracket. And, of course, yep, they were on there. And I was just like, man, I'm just going to use it. I just want to do it. Just, 13.300.50. We'll just sit there and call CQ. But
yeah, no, I mean, when I first got my general and I got on, I used 14.3, not knowing it was maritime. And someone just said, hey, yeah, this is the maritime, station, you probably shouldn't be calling CQ on this one. And I said, oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for the info. Yeah, I'll be glad to move. Like I said, if you're nice, if you're respectful and you're willing to not be absurd, like those guys could have moved, but I get it. It's a net and they've been doing it for 20 years. Great. But it's just a net. It's right. Not like it's like, it's not like, hey, we have a hurricane emergency frequency that you're on and we're monitoring this for life, get off the net, get off the frequency. It's like, we have our net.
Funny story, that happened to me and I totally didn't even catch on to it. Like when we had the hurricanes last, May, September timeframe, I was out doing a POTA and I totally forgot that the hurricane nets were already, like, I saw all the banners, saw all the notices saying the hurricane nets in active mode and that they're taking calls. And I even listened to them like a couple of days before and didn't even trigger in my mind. Spun the dial, didn't hear anything, and I just started calling CQ on there, and all of a sudden the guys came on like, "This is a hurricane traffic net. You shouldn't be." I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I totally forgot." And they they were like, "We understand. It's no problem." But at that point, it's like you said, Todd, you just like, "Okay, I'm gonna back off, go find something else." Instead of just being well, I was here first. I'm a POTA guy. I have access to the bands.
Well, I think next year on field day, I'm just going to work that frequency and he's going to call for the net. And I'm going to be like, well, dude, it's field day. I'm not moving.
Hey, buddy, we haven't talked in a year.
Yeah. You remember me? I was in North Carolina last year.
I know. Not this year, buddy.
Again, I wasn't looking for a fight. I was just I couldn't believe it. And then, it was just one thing, like after it was done and I said, hey man, I have no problem leaving. And then he starts talking trash. First about me. You hear that guy? You don't even know what he's talking about. Blah. And then I was like, whoa. I go, hey, hello, I'm still here. Get off the frequency.
This is not an encrypted net.
I'm like, nope, not getting off.
Wow. Yeah. So it's kind of funny because we could definitely go crazy with a lot of stories with this. So I guess kind of the two takeaways for this is one, we already kind of touched upon it. It's like, just listen as much as you can. If you're not already in your, activation, if in the case of this was like a POTA, if you're going to, confront somebody, as Todd, I think kind of alluded to, don't be an ass back unless they really turn, it up. And again, use your discretion with that because, some of us can be really hot-headed fast and run into some major problems that you don't want to be on the hot seat and being the picked up by the FCC what are they called, the volunteer airwave band, what are they called,
the band police.
Yeah, right. Yes, our volunteer organization, which, I'm glad that they do what they do. And, it's funny because I listen to some other podcasts and they talk about those, incidents that happened and what was reported. And I kind of think, okay, yeah, I'm glad you're trapping technicians on FT8 on, not having those privileges and that type of stuff. But, at the same time, it's like, why not point at the LIDS that are running these nets that, they seem to think they have the, the authority to be able to just push other people around, which is, it's kind of sad because I know, and I'm sure you're the same way, Todd. Are you ever going to check into that net now?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
right.
It's probably a private net. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like, I think it was the Wisconsin, Florida transient net. I don't know. It sounded like it was a bunch of. It was, yeah.
You gave a bunch of homeless people ham radios. What's wrong with society? Right?
It sounded like it was a bunch of people from Wisconsin that moved down to Florida and they want to talk to their old buddy. I mean, whatever. But I mean, for me, it was just like, just do the right thing, be respectful. I mean, even if the guy didn't call CQ, is this frequency in use? And he just called and I just responded, hey, this frequency is in use. He goes, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't listen. Do you mind moving? We do a net every day. It's been going on for 20 years. Would you mind just moving to a different frequency? And I would have been fine with it. But he came right at me like with the negative, like, I'm going to come after you. And then he started talking crap about me. And then he threatened to call the FCC. I said, go ahead. I said, I'd love to talk to the FCC. Maybe I'll get your license removed revoked. And you won't be able to get on revoked and you won't be able to get on your stupid net anymore.
So Paul, you obviously alluded to the Ham Radio 2.0, showcase. You care to allude a little bit about that for folks that might not know?
So that was more specifically focused on the Maritime Mobile Net, which is 14.300. And more than a few times, like when I'm out in the field, like you scroll through the band, and if that frequency is open and there's people above you and below you, but that frequency is open, and you call out and you say, is this frequency in use? Is this frequency in use? Is this frequency in use? And you don't get a response. Well, guess what? The frequency is yours. Mm-hmm. Like that's the rule that we play by.
Yep.
But so
rule. Yep.
It is as everything with this hobby, right? Because we are self-policing, So I mean, we're not really going to look to the FCC to solve our problems. We have to suss it out on our own.
Yeah.
But so many times, it's the entitlement from these folks,
individuals
that run these nets, right? It's the entitlement. And at the end of the day, you are not entitled to any set frequency, right? Just like, Todd said, we've got our monthly 10-meter net, and it's always plus or minus depending on band activity, right? And I was so proud that my Reddit comment was read on Jason's video there, because that's exactly what I said. I said, hey, listen, our local club literally puts out, this is the frequency plus or minus.
Yeah.
And with every net, it is always, this is the frequency plus or minus, because you never know, there could be somebody there. And the respectful thing to do, right, as the net control operator, when you come on, if that set frequency is in use, well, you go, all right, well, I'll go up 3 and I'll listen. I'll go down 3 and I'll listen. Right.
Or have an alternate, or have like a predetermined alternate for your net. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is if people flock to a net and you go up or down 3 to 5, they're going to find you anyway. Yeah. They're going to find you, like I know 3916, like from probably, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time on into the evening, that frequency is constantly in use. It's in use by the freewheelers and the tailgaters, and they run the trivia net. So yes, it is well known. But if you were there before they came on to do their series of nets for the evening, well, they're going to be polite and they're going to ask you to move. They're not going to be rude about it, because they're super, super awesome ham radio operators, and they understand. It's a gentleman's agreement. That frequency isn't theirs. Yes, they own the website. Yes, they own everything that is attached to 3916, but it's not theirs. They don't own the frequency, and neither does the Maritime Mobile Net. And so for them to say that, well, we're monitoring traffic 24/7 for boats in distress. Well, as a boater, you see it, right? As a boater, let me tell you, my first go-to is my marine radio, which is nowhere near the HF portion of the bands, right? And I'm going to be hard pressed to be like, you know what, let me set up my HF rig so that I can get on 14.300 and talk to somebody in Wisconsin.
I know, to help me out. I'm on the ocean.
To help me when I'm, out in Hampton Harbor, right? No, I'm going to use my marine radio, and I'm going to call the Coast Guard. I'm going to call, Hampton Harbor. I'm going to call somebody that is going to be able to do something. So it's all silly to me. I understand the original premise, but in today's day and age, it's just not relevant. And so have some courtesy, have some decency, just be polite to the other operators that are out there, because you don't own the frequency and you're not on it 24/7. And there isn't boats looking for freaking help 24/7 on 14.300.
Nope. So here's a thought. It's like, I think, and I'm hearing you kind of talk about this a little bit. The one thing that kind of triggered in my head was like the don't own the frequency thing. I think kind of comes from and may be derivative of the fact that we used to have repeaters and run nets on there. Now, those frequencies are owned. I mean, they're licensed or allotted to the owners of the repeaters. So in essence, if someone was running a net, so like if we ran our nightly net and all of a sudden I jumped on top of our net and said, you don't own this frequency and you can't use this, I would look very silly, because in essence, it's sort of on a repeater, local to the club, and usually owned and set up that way. So it's a club, it's licensed and assigned, even though it's not owned per se by the repeater, it's still assigned to us. No one else can really have that frequency without, coordinating it. I think that mentality carries on into the HF world for a lot of the older folk, because repeaters, and it's not so much today, but it used to be when I was growing up, 30 years ago, repeaters were the lifeblood. Everybody was on the repeater. Everybody like had to be, from the morning you got up on your car ride or from out having your coffee to your car to the, your work and then back and forth. That was like how everybody communicated. There were phone patches on those things. So you could call home and tell your wife you're stuck in traffic, the whole 9 yards. So that whole attitude of, ownership of the repeaters just kind of like just grew into people's lives and became habitual, I think. And that's kind of where that may have derived out of, HF, because, we obviously know nobody owns is legit. Nobody owns that frequency that they're on. It's not assigned to anybody. No one's been allotted to it. No one's been, deemed by the FCC or ARRL to say, hey, guess what? That club can own that frequency. Imagine if that was the case. Imagine if those 10-meter repeaters that are, out there, people are like, you can't be on this frequency. It's our 10-meter repeater. It's like, come on, please. The 10-meter repeaters that I know of, the people that I've talked to, the guys out in New York, and I've used their repeater a couple of times, are phenomenal. They're like, they love the fact there are people using it, and that, when e-skip kicks in or whatever, that people from Europe are on that repeater frequency because they're hitting it from their home. And, they're like, wow, this is great to see the 10-meter repeater up. But, they aren't complaining that, people are using, they're dying to have people get on those, frequencies and, use them. So it's just kind of this weird mentality, I think, that's just dragged through people's minds and just, been adopted in these nets.
Well, I think the guy found me after I moved, after I had my thing, and started tuning up on me because all of a sudden, and I was like, man, like if I had my DX10, I wouldn't have done it, even though I'd want to do it. But you imagine you had like 1,000 watts and the guy was like that, and you said, okay, you're going to do your net, tune, beep. Not the whole net. Every time you spoke, beep. Yeah, I mean, it happens to me all the time. And
there are lots of people that do it.
Yeah, and now I think that this guy did it because he wanted to. I mean, I can't prove that it was him, but really, no one's tuning up on me the whole day, and all of a sudden, I get into it with this guy. Next thing you know, the frequency I moved to is getting tuned up on every 2 seconds.
Yeah,
but I hate that because it's just. It's I could do the same thing, and and I'm not doing it just because I respect the net and I respect the protocol and I respect ham radio. Like, I don't want people not to be able to use the frequencies, but that's what this guy was doing. I'm almost positive, because I mean, as soon as it ended or the net was done, it stopped. Like, how because I'd go back to it. I'm like, oh, the net's ended. Oh, funny how I'm not getting tuned up on anymore.
I know, nobody cares anymore. What's all the deal with that? Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, right? So for somebody like myself with hearing loss, right? I'm always wearing headphones because otherwise I can't hear the radio. I can't pick the signals out.
Right.
And so when somebody comes on and they start tuning on top of me, intentionally causing interference, it is so awful because I most of the hearing that I've lost is the higher frequencies, right?
Oh, wow.
And so that tuning signal is such a high frequency, it just resonates through my head.
Ooh.
Now, what I don't mind so much is when people interfere intentionally, but they'll do like Windows 98 noises, or they'll they'll get on and they'll do a little like Little Wing riff on their guitar, and stuff like that. I don't mind it so much. It's not as interfering, but God, the worst thing you could do is just send a carrier out over somebody else over and over and over. Like, God, that's all awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So
well, I wish there was a way that you could find out, like, where the signal came from or who was it that was tuning up on you. Because then you could like send the email and say, hey, why are you tuning up on me, buddy?
We have in the IT world a nice little, what they call a virus. Oh, send that back over there to disable their radio or something. Well, isn't that?
Yeah. Well, you'd need a Kraken.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, in some cases, I think there are a few people that we've seen this too. Even on we all are aware of a situation that I don't want to go into too much detail about in a local repeater that we've heard of or been a part of, again, people harassing other people on a repeater, and that's just unacceptable too. I mean, I don't know, what is your beef that you have to do this to anybody for any reason. It's like, it's just, you're wasting people's time. You're wasting your time. There's just no, benefits whatsoever. Great. You might get a little thrill out of it, but in essence, you're just making people's lives more miserable who want to have some fun in the hobby. And I think whatever it is, knock it off. Simple as that.
What is your major malfunction, Private Plow?
Exactly.
I'm in a world of shit.
All right. So how we can put a little bow on this. I mean, in essence, to wrap it up, let's kind of go quickly around. I mean, anything we should add to this, or we want to kind of just, put in a quick summary or summarizer, summary in chief, Paul, anything you could give to have somebody walk away with?
Well, so if I was going to leave anybody with parting words here, I would say there's assholes in every hobby. Don't let them get to you. Don't get pushed off of frequencies because somebody is being intentionally interfering to you. Be strong, stand your ground if you're in the right, but always be polite, always be courteous, always just try and be a little bit understanding of where the other person is coming from. And if we could all do that, then everybody will get along just fine.
Roger that.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Paul, you got anything you want to throw in that, Todd?
No, I agree 100%. Just be cool and have fun. And like I said, it was my first experience. It seems like Paul's had multiple experiences, and I hope I don't have too many more. But like I said, for me, I've just always liked doing POTA, and I've always had good interactions with people. And it was just weird that, and that maybe the guy just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Who knows? But
very possible.
The next day, they were totally cool about it, and I was totally cool. I'm like, hey, yeah, no problem. I said I'll move down, and good luck. Have a good net, and that was the end of it. So it ended well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, in essence, you may have made a friend with somebody else, outside of him. But
I have a feeling that guy talked to him and said, hey, you were out of line. The guy was right. Like, you need to back off. I'm sure something like that happened, because he was totally like, yeah, I heard what happened yesterday. I was on the net, thank you for letting us have the free. I mean, it was just a totally different feel to it.
Yep.
And like I said, I wouldn't have even gone back, but I was like, you know what? This guy deserves a viral video. So that's why I did it.
I know, man. Record always record.
I know.
You never know when the gold will appear. All right. Well, with that, as always, like I said, and we've all iterated tonight, if you possibly, even if you're in the right, don't be dead right, as they say. Ultimately, be a good steward with the bands, and try to get someone to see the error of their ways. And I'm sure, like Todd's already shared, there's somebody who stepped in and said, hey, you're being a lid, stop being that and move on. So don't be a lid, and be a good ambassador of the hobby. And so with that, we like to say, as always, thanks again for joining the Live Free and Ham podcast community. Remember, if you haven't subscribed, we want to know, what have you been doing? Simple as that. Come on, come be part of the fun, come be part of the action. Come join our Discord as well. We've got a channel that talks about all the shows. So if you've had maybe a lit experience, we want to hear about it. We're definitely willing to share about all of our experiences, and we can learn and grow from one another. So definitely come over and check our Discord out. And as always, you can always connect with our show by heading over to livefreeandham.com/shop, where you can buy any of our merch. Todd's got a thing.
I got one more thing before I forget. All right. I promised Kevin from, where is he from? He is, let's see, he's from Iowa. He was on our podcast. Well,
A0 KLB.
Yep. So he sent me an email, and he's getting back into the RC world, and he has a YouTube. He has a YouTube channel, and it's called Farm RC Pilot. So
yes, yep.
He just started flying, getting the RCs back together. He sent me an email, said he was doing it, and I told him I would I'd support him on here on the net. So if you guys want to see some cool stuff and learn about RC planes and see his experiences, I'm sure he'll have a lot of cool videos in the future. But it's called Farm RC Pilot. So.
All right. Well, we'll get that link in the description, so you can go over and check him out. I actually saw him post a video. Actually, he was fooling around with paratroopers coming out of one of his planes or something like that. So, I didn't get a chance to watch that, but it's on my checklist there to to get into my watch list. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that, and go over and show Kevin some love for sure. We'd love to help other guys out, and especially guys that are part of the Live Free and Ham community as always. And so, as always, you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a show and review on iTunes if you are an Apple listener. Otherwise, you can use the SMS link down below and leave us a comment and feedback. We'd love to hear it, and we'll share it on our next show. And you can, again, support our show through Patreon and buy us the beer links. Again, if you want to get access to our pre-release shows, you can do that, and as we have a bunch of discounts there and a few other things for our Patreon members that are there, and those links are conveniently located in our show notes and on our website. And if you want to reach any of our hosts, all of our contact is on livefreeandham.com or thoseguysupnorth.com. They all go to the same place. And again, with that, thanks again for listening from all of us from Live Free and Ham 7-3.
7-3.
7-3, and send me your bad reviews because I want to read them.
We want the bad ones.